Mustard poisoning is the leading cause of injury death here in the United States. And the reality is children are confusing everyday household items with food or drinks. We want to show you the hazards so that you can protect your little ones. Debbie Forrest with the Poison Information Center is joining us this morning with some examples and an important reminder because it is Poison Prevention Week.
Absolutely.
So let's start also with, because you and I were just talking about this, I said, what's wrong with grape juice? The reality is grape juice looks too much like other things that our kids shouldn't be ingesting.
Exactly. It looks exactly like this wine, especially a child that's not of reading age yet. They can easily confuse the two. That's why they get into so much of what they do.
And which is an important point to even show what else is here. This looks like honey.
It does, absolutely. Right? It looks exactly like the honey container. To a young child, they look alike. And that's actually something for your car.
So you have to be so careful. And then what about these? And I think it's obvious too. And it's the
same color. And especially if you put the cleaner in a cup on the kitchen counter, a child doesn't take time to taste it. They just gulp it.
And so obviously it's important to have the safety locks and everything in place also. And I know that there is a tendency too, if you have maybe a big bottle of Drano and you don't want to have that taking up space, so you put it in maybe a smaller container that was once a milk container or something. Is that a worry as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you transfer things out of their original container, then they are in a food container usually, like you say, and children will mistake those for the food that was originally in there and accidentally drink it.
It's proof you can never take your eyes off your kids, even when they're in the housing. You think that they're safe because you've baby-proofed everything. These are just kind of common mistakes that we parents tend to make and don't even realize what we're doing. I know that this is an issue because do these have iron in it? Is that
actually
the concern?
Those don't contain iron. The only vitamins that we really worry about that children get into are the ones that contain iron. Those don't contain iron, so they're not as serious. They might cause a little upset stomach, maybe a little diarrhea, but they're not a real significant risk.
But it's interesting too because the reality is when you look at these two, this looks like candy, and you don't want kids anyway eating 6 or 7 vitamins all in one day.
They will eat the whole bottle if you give them the time to do it. They will do so.
We have to save them from themselves, is what I always say, particularly around 18 months, right?
Yes.
And this is, e-cigarettes. We have talked about this before. In fact, we've had you on, but it's worth mentioning and an important reminder too. These are the nicotine. These are the liquids that you put in the e-cigarette?
Exactly. And they're flavored with very attractive flavors to young children: cherry, bubblegum, chocolate, grape, you name it, to entice young people to use them. So they flavor them. And there's a very high concentration of nicotine in those. It could be very serious for a young child to ingest them.
We've had some deaths around the country, haven't we, as a result of this?
We have had one death, yes.
One death. It's interesting because you brought this, which is a great example, because we really need to mention, let me move it over here for you, Blair. Prescription drugs, as we were chatting earlier during the commercial break, is the biggest concern when it comes to confusion among children, correct?
It is one of the greatest concerns, absolutely. And so many of them look like candy, as you can see from the display right here, that they're very enticing to a young child.
And those baby-proof tops, you just cannot use them enough to make sure that you close them. You can't trust them.
You absolutely have to lock them up.
What about when relatives come? We're at spring break, the vacation, grandma and grandpa may come. They're not used to having kids around the house. They have all their medications.
Yes, that is a very serious problem. It's a high-risk time of year when grandparents and other relatives come to visit. They bring all their medications and other items with them. They don't generally lock them up. They often have them in the little flip-top type containers that are very easy for a child to open, so they can get into them very, very readily.
Okay, so be careful there and have that conversation certainly with family members who are coming to visit. You brought these fake snakes as an example. I did not realize that if you're bitten by a snake, and other marine life also that you can call poison control?
Yes, spiders, insects, snake bites, marine life. We absolutely help people that are bit or stung by any of those things.
And what is, because I've heard this before also with snakes, do you apply a tourniquet? What about, cutting out where the bite is or maybe trying to suck out the venom? Any of that a good idea, or is that all myth?
All of that is in the past tense. We don't cut and suck out the venom. We don't apply a tourniquet, and we don't apply ice. All of those things can actually cause more tissue damage at the site, so we absolutely don't recommend them.
So what's the best thing then to do if you've been bitten by,
Wash it with soap and water and call the Poison Center.
Should you elevate, not elevate, lay down?
You should actually keep it at or below the level of the heart.
Okay, excellent advice. Thank you, Debbie, for being here. Do
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. So important. And here's an important number also you need to write down. Folks, if you've got a babysitter and you're leaving the house, I always post this for my sitter. It's an important number that they have. It's the Poison Help number, 800-222-1222. Easy to remember. You can call 24 hours a day for emergency information about something you or your child might have accidentally ingested.